The FTX founder, Sam Bankman-Fried, now testifying in his own defense, but without a jury present. Judge Kaplan sending them home so that he can hear out the testimony in this case and see if any elements will be admissible. In the unusual move of taking the stand, Bankman-Fried has decided to come to his own defense, denying all charges against him of fraud and conspiracy. Sam Enzer has been following the case and is a partner at Cahill Gordon Reindel. So, Sam, welcome to the program. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Josh.
And Sam, let me ask you about this news. The judge decides to send the jury home so he can conduct this hearing and see if some of Sam Bankman-Fried's testimony is admissible. And I guess Sam Bankman-Fried then gives the testimony to the judge without the jury present. Sam, I'm just curious, how unusual is that?
It's not done that commonly, but it is something Judge Kaplan has done in the past. I personally, when I was a federal prosecutor in the Southern District of New York, had a trial in front of Judge Kaplan where he actually used this procedure. And so the concept of it is that he will hear a preview of the testimony of the witness, in this case, Sam Bankman-Fried, and that way he will know exactly what the testimony is. He'll have a record of it, and he'll make a ruling on a concrete record as to whether or not pieces of it can come in. And that makes it easier for an appellate court later on, if this case ends in a conviction and goes up on appeal. It makes it easier for the appellate court to see why it is Judge Kaplan did what he did in letting certain things in or certain things not come in.
So obviously we're not inside the courtroom, we don't know, but what would be the difference between what's led, in this particular case, and in as much as, what we know about it, what could be eligible to not be heard by the fuller jury?
Good to see you, Julie, and thank you for having me on. So I think a couple things that we know are controversial and difficult from an evidentiary perspective are Sam Bankman-Fried's intention to testify to the role of lawyers in giving him advice about certain things that the government has argued demonstrate that he acted with criminal intent. So, for example, we heard testimony from the government's cooperating witnesses that Sam Bankman-Fried instructed the employees at FTX to use Signal for communications and to have those communications auto-delete because it would look bad to regulators. Sam Bankman-Fried, in his own defense, wants to say, no. I talked to lawyers and they told me it's okay to use Signal for certain things, even if we delete it, as long as there were certain restrictions on it. And that raises complicated issues about, does this waive the attorney-client privilege? Is this testimony accurate, fair, or is it unduly prejudicial? Is it misleading? And so I think Judge Kaplan wants to hear it and know exactly what it is that Sam Bankman-Fried will say about it before he decides whether that is something appropriate for the jury to consider.
And Sam, I'm just curious, if you were Sam Bankman-Fried's attorney, would you have advised him to take the stand to testify?
No. I think it is as close to inevitable as you can get that he will be convicted in this case. I've been following it closely. I think the evidence is overwhelming. And so I think he's going down either way. But testifying and getting convicted despite that testimony risks the judge determining that he has perjured himself, which can add to his sentence when it comes time for sentencing. In addition, I think that there is a lot of evidence that would not have come in that he will now open the door to on cross-examination. Prior bad acts, statements he's made that are inconsistent with what he's going to say here. So I think he's going to hurt himself by doing this.
Is there any upside to him testifying?
There's a possible upside. It's a Hail Mary. So if Sam Bankman-Fried, if you believe the government's case, perpetrated a massive fraud. So obviously, he's somebody who can be charismatic and persuasive. He persuaded a lot of people to give him billions of dollars. And so perhaps he thinks, I can persuade these 12 people in the jury box that I'm innocent. And if you're going to lose and you're going to do decades in prison either way, maybe you take the shot at the Hail Mary and you don't worry about whether it tacks on a few extra years to your sentence because it gives you at least some hope of getting off.
And Sam, if he is convicted here, would you expect, an immediate appeal here by Sam Bankman-Fried's team? And is there anything they could argue on appeal that you think would have an impact?
So the way criminal cases in federal court go, the case, you cannot appeal in the middle of the case. So they have to first wait for there to be a sentencing. And then once the case is over and there's a final judgment, at that point, the defense can appeal. I expect that if Sam Bankman-Fried is convicted and sentenced, that he will appeal. I think there are some arguments he can make about evidence that wasn't allowed in, certain things that have happened at the trial, but I have not seen anything that I would call reversible error, the type of error at a trial that would justify a new trial or throwing out his conviction.
Sam, finally, we've been talking to a lot of attorneys about this case. A lot of people are watching it closely. We're watching it closely because it's an amazing story, obviously, what has happened with Sam Bankman-Fried. I'm also curious just from a legal perspective. Your community, the legal community, seems to be very interested in it as well. Is there something about this particular case? Is it just that, like us, it's a fascinating story? Is there something from a legal perspective that's also really fascinating here? What do you think?
It's always fascinating to see a fraud. There's a reason why we all have Netflix and watch true crime series. But I think apart from that, I'm the head of the cryptocurrency and fintech practice at Cahill, and FTX was intertwined with many other parts of the digital asset ecosystem. So there's a lot of things that come out during the trial that are relevant for other players in the space, including many of my clients. And so we have to watch it closely to see how the testimony will affect those clients in the aftermath of this case.
That makes a lot of sense. Sam, happy watching, I guess. Happy, if you can call it that in this case. Anyway, we'll all continue to watch it together. Sam Enzer, thank you so much for your perspective and expertise on this.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.